Okay, cool. Hi, thanks for staying. I obviously know there's a big competition with Joe Reese and Zach Wilson being on the other forum, but first question here, does anybody use Dataform or know what Dataform is? Kind of, love it. Does anybody use DBT? There we go. So essentially, what I'm going to talk about today is who really uses Dataform, which I'm sure the DBT lovers are here want to know. But I'm May. I'm the Senior and Data Analytics Engineer from PetCircle. Yes, this is my dog. This is a very meme-heavy, kind of lighthearted kind of presentation. But today, that's what we're going through. This is not a turf war. I'd like to just point that out. I'm not going to slag it off. So let's go. So, who is PetCircle? Does anybody have a pet as well? Dogs, cats, love it. Have you guys heard of PetCircle? Yes, love it. We're an online retailer, so we have warehouses all around Australia, which means obviously we've got a lot of online data, and we've also got a lot of warehouse-related data as well. So we do have a lot. We were awarded, I guess, the title of one of the unicorn startups in 2021. We started back in 2010. Basically it started with two guys trying to help their dad get dog food delivered to their house. What was the best way to do it? It was online delivery. Cool. So you may have known us from some of these campaigns, GTFO, with the asterisks of get the fur baby out. This is not, that's, oh, cool, still good. That's basically some of our ad campaigns people may have seen. So what is Dataform? So this is an image from Google. So you can see Dataform basically sits in between your data lakes, your ingestion of data, and it helps you define, test, deploy, transform, all those sort of things. Again, very similar to DBT, and to allow you to have logical data on the outside of it. I think Google acquired Dataform back in 2020. It's relatively new, but is an amazing piece of infrastructure to help you with your pipelines. Cool. Obviously, being a Google product, you use it with BigQuery. I think at the moment now, it used to be open source, but now obviously it's very BigQuery focused. So, next slide. So I'm going to run you through the story of what happened, why do we use Dataform? So the story has three parts, right? So being a startup is hard. What does that mean? You kind of need to get stuff done pretty quickly, which means you carry some tech debt. So we used to have these bespoke pipelines that were kind of not so great. And then I'm going to go through us actually building the platform. We've been on this journey for about a year now. What it was like, pitfalls that we had, great things that we had, go through that. And then finally, happily ever after. We're a year into implementation. I'm going to tell you about what it's like, what's good, what's not bad. Right, so this all began, we had a new director of data. He basically came in and he basically looked around and went, oh my God, everything is on fire. I can see a couple of laughs. I'm pretty sure you guys have been in these situations before. He had a vision of wanting to mature the data platform of PetCircle, and that meant data governance, data management, data organization, that type of thing. But to be able to do that, you need to have a very sturdy foundation underneath it. So when he arrived, we did not have any data lineage. We did not have metadata on our data. We did not have an automated deployment platform. Again, being a startup, it was just pretty rough. We also had multiple definitions. We didn't have data quality. This is basically him. This is Juma. So basically, that's him. And then secondly, obviously, if you don't have a very good data platform, what does that mean for your BI tools and your analytics? This is what it means. So I kid you not, this is from our legacy. I actually typed in the word product revenue, and in our legacy, this is how many different definitions of metrics that could come out of it. It was a mess. Let's be honest, it was a mess. And basically, this was all of our end users trying to figure out which one do I use, what do I do, how do I get there, which one is the right one, which I'm sure everybody's had this experience before. So we knew that something had to change, and it was essentially, spoiler alert, we had to build a new data warehouse project while we managed legacy at the same time. So I'm not sure whether anybody knows, but according to Gartner, 50% of your new data warehouse platform projects fail. That's it. That's the reality of it. People don't buy into it. You have issues with it. It just doesn't work. So my tech lead and myself, we basically went on this journey to figure out what we needed to do, why did it fail, which projects we needed to go and do, what kind of software was going to actually help us do it. So we had a couple of learnings from it. The first thing was If 50% fail and 50% are successful, what's the common denominator here, right? So how can one team work well with a piece of software and how can another team not do it? So what we began to realize is it's actually your people and your processes. If you have a very strong foundation in the way that you operate, the way that you want to execute, the way you want your team to do, you need to then find the right software or piece of software to help supplement that and supplement you. It's never really the tool's fault, right? So we had to go through our system requirements. So taking into consideration that it was our people and our processes what we wanted to do, basically these are our guiding principles of what we wanted to do, and then we needed to figure out what were our system requirements to make sure that we could support that process. So I'll go through our process quickly. Basically, our main thing, two key things to take away is we wanted agreed upon patterns in the way that we work. If you don't have patterns, how are you going to tell your staff? How are you going to guide people? How are you going to know what you're actually going to do? And secondly is we model everything. We always do our conceptual, we always do our physical modeling with it. These are the two things that we needed to help, right? Because we knew that doing these things up front made the downstream impact a lot easier. So what did that mean? Things needed to be codified. We needed to have source control. We needed to automate as much as we could possibly, basically take the hard yards out of it. We needed flexibility, we needed schema controls, we needed all these sort of bits and pieces, and it needed to be easy to onboard people, right? So, why do we choose Dataform? To use Dataform or to not use Dataform? Which one do you do? So, first of all, I will say that obviously being an online retailer, we are very heavy in the Google space, being online, of course. We already use BigQuery. That's basically our bread and butter. We love that it was integrated with Git. We also love the config that goes with it, which I'll go into afterwards. But essentially, when we looked at all the sort of things that we needed back on that list, Dataform does it. So, and I can tell for the DBT people for the next one, oh my God, did you hear she didn't use DBT? Ew, gross. No, just kidding. So why didn't we use DBT? Like I said, there are a lot of pros and cons to it. This is not a smackdown, it's not a turf war. But essentially for us, obviously being Google first was one thing. The one thing that I think we saw that was really good is DBT had a really cool online community, right? There are a lot of GitHub repos that you can get. You have a data source, you can pull it down. It basically does your modeling for you, right? But the one thing that we learned for ourselves was those repos are not necessarily the most optimized way that you needed to manage your data for yourself. It was a way that someone else had dictated it for you. So obviously there was a positive of that, but this is us in Google. Dataform, as I said here, a lot of people do and don't know it. Yako's laughing because Yako is our Google beloved person right here being like, oh my God. But essentially, for us, because we have a good close working relationship with Google, we were able to use them as our community. We would sit, we would design, we would figure out how we're going to do it, we would have our thoughts, we would then sit with them and be like, hey, this is what we want to do, this is best practices. We would get feedback from them. It was amazing. So that basically made the whole community side of it redundant because we are working with the people that are close to the products. So we knew that our end product was going to be best practices, the quickest way to do it in Google, and the most efficient way to do it with Google. Obviously, I can also acknowledge that there is the DBT open source aspect of it. Fine. So being open source, now I will preface this opinion is of our tech lead. It may not be mine, but basically his idea was open source never works out the box when you first use it. Whether you do it or not, it was going to be an issue. If we were going to have to maintain or help something or contribute towards something, we want it to be towards our platform and not necessarily another platform. And therefore, if you go to the DBT side, so actually, if you have a different opinion to this is his LinkedIn, feel free to go to his inbox. I'm not kidding, told him it's coming. He's in New Zealand, so send it away. But finally, obviously that's DBT open source. Otherwise, you're looking at the paid version of it, right? You have to pay for DBT. But the reality is, Dataform's free, right? If you're already using BigQuery, Dataform comes with it. There is no user access fee. There is no, Yako, hopefully you don't do it in the future, but there are no fees that come with it. It's already built in. If you're already using BigQuery, basically the question is, why are you not using Dataform? It comes with it, right? Okay, so enough of the jokes. The next couple of slides are a little bit serious and less meme heavy, so bear with me with it. The reality is for our pipelines, this is our basic infrastructure. So don't be fooled by its simplicity, but essentially all that we have for our CI is GitHub, GitHub runners, and Dataform, right? Those two connect to one another. And then for our deployment, Dataform and BigQuery take care of it for you, essentially. We obviously have our standard dev, test, and prod areas in terms of our projects. This is how we manage it. Again, this is all linked up with GitHub. And in terms of orchestration, believe it or not, we just use serverless. It's not that difficult. So we have a cloud scheduler. We manage the state basically in Firestore. We use a bunch of cloud functions, and we use Google Workflows. Essentially all that you need. Now, I understand that not everybody will have a DevOps team supporting them, but I will be going through afterwards, if you are a smaller or medium size, not a large company, you don't necessarily need the sort of infrastructure. We like to make it, I guess, a little bit complicated because we are a little bit bigger, but essentially, if you do have a DevOps team, be nice to them. I do fully acknowledge, obviously we wrap this in Terraform, but for us to be able to deploy quickly in all of our serverless, we have a really supportive DevOps team. They're not here, but I will give them a shout out for it anyways. Right, so what comes out of the box? I'm going to be going through not everything that comes out the box for Dataform, but I'm going to go through things that were beneficial towards us, what worked, what didn't work. This is obviously not, it's not a Google ad or anything like that. It's just the real situation about how that we went through it. So, like I said, it comes straight connected with Git. I think it's, when you are testing it, if you are going to do ClickUp, not that I'm fully against it, I think maybe it's about 5 clicks and you can get it connected through to GitHub immediately, no problems. You can use access tokens and whatnot with it, but the connectivity to get it through to Git is like super easy. So, and then essentially you can, this is like your basic configuration, right? So you can configure it to Git depending on what branch that you want. It actually does your like daily frequency, the way that you want to operate it. Obviously time zones. There are some certain overrides if you get a little bit more complicated, but you can choose essentially what branch in terms of your Git, whether it's main release, what you want to go and do. It's basically all there for you, right? The scheduler already comes out the box, but like I said, we'll go into a little bit later, but ours is a little bit more difficult, but if you are a smaller medium, or if you're a data analyst style team using BigQuery, like this stuff is already set up for you. It's just basically there to go. So, I'm not sure whether you guys have had this situation before. I think some of the other talks talked about it, is having circular dependencies in your tables, but trying to figure out which table needs to run first. If I run table A, is that going to impact table B? Is table B going to impact table A? Then worst of all, if you inherit code, when you find, oh my God, there's a circular dependency. Who set this up? Why? What's happening, right? So one of the great things that comes out the box with Dataform is that it already manages your table dependencies for you. You can link all of your tables to say, it'll reference the next table, it'll let you know what's going on. I'll show you a graph afterwards, but the one key thing also that comes with Dataform is your config. This is basically your controller. I think this is like models in DBT. Again, for us, the big thing when we were going through it was being able to tag, right? So tags are like our big controller about what goes on. You can use tags for a multiple set of reasons. You can begin to have a look at the DAG itself, which I'll show you afterwards. You can begin to run your tables based on how you tag them. This is actually live code from our production system, so I've had to blur a couple of bits and pieces, but that's fine. But basically, you can see here, you have your unique key assertions, you have your tags, you can do all of your other bits and pieces of clustering towards BigQuery. This is your real controller about how you want to operate. And being able to have this, whether you are a smaller or medium or a larger sort of company, this is what helps you navigate the way that you build your platform. So, okay. This is actually what one of the DAGs of visualizations looks like. So you can see here I've just picked an inventory domain for us. This is our current work in progress for it, but you can see I've picked, this was the table that I referenced before. So we know that if any downstream impacts happen from this table, we're a bit stuffed, right? So you know from here, so you can see in here what it depends on. Basically, these are all the immediate downstream impact of the table, so you know. Then you can also see what it depends on itself. So one of the cool things that we find when you need to rerun a table is if I need to rerun the table, you can select rerun this table and then everything that's attached to it. I don't have to think about, oh my God, did this other table, did that update, did this not update, is this going to impact this, is this going to impact that, right? It's all there predefined for you, and it's not something that you as a data engineer or an analytics engineer or anybody using it, you have to carry that mental load for it. Right, so, this is another, I'm very good at pressing the button, there we go. So again, this is, if we go back to the previous slide, we can see here, we have basically our assertion keys, right? So this is our keys that let you know what the primary key of the table is. You can do your checks then afterwards that come with it. If I go here, this is actually what it looks like when it fails. So I made this fail on purpose, so just for the record. But essentially you can see here, we have these tables, which is our staging core, and then our final business, we call it business layer kind of mapping, but then we can see afterwards that we did a primary key check on every single table that's run afterwards, and you know exactly what fails. So it's really good for your developers when you are going through and dealing with it, because you go, oh, this table has a primary key issue. You can also set a bespoke type of data quality checks that you want to do with it afterwards as well, but essentially it's really good because you just know actually right now immediately what's happening and what is the downstream impact for it. So, I'm going to go through this. So in terms of the config that I've spoken about, a lot of that drives a lot of what we do. One thing that doesn't come out the box with it and what we had to build was, because we do our conceptual and physical modeling up front, we allow that to basically build our config. We built a config generator. So if I go back to here, all of this code you see, the config at the top, is just automatically generated. What we do is when we do our conceptual and obviously physical modeling that comes with it, we sit with our data stewards or our data governance area, and we sit and we talk about making sure that in terms of a business-friendly language, what does each of it mean? Which is always the hardest thing, because this then feeds on later on to in terms of our data governance and our data catalog that we use. All of this gets published, which we do use Google's Dataplex, which is a whole separate talk within itself. But basically, this is all predetermined once, and it's done upfront, and it's done with your data stewards, right? That's the language that they want to use. That's what they want to communicate to the business. But essentially, even if you don't generate this yourself, you can still write it. The format is still there. It's just for us, it's a lot easier, and it's an easier mental load on our engineers because they will basically receive config. They don't need to think about what they need to call things, what they need to go and do. Their job is to get the data from A and B in the most efficient way to conform to here. Cool. Right. Again, going back to data quality checks, I'm sure that, hands up if you've experienced this. You've gone something, you're like, null, why is there a null in here? What is going on? And that's when you lose trust within your data, right? So what we do in terms of our data quality checks, we have the individual ones when you are developing, but then we also have the ones, we have built a separate data quality repo on top of this, again using Dataform, which collates all of our data quality checks within one another to figure out what's going on at a holistic point of view. So if there are any issues, basically we know at a high level where it's happened, what type of assertions, what sort of failures have happened throughout the way. So as we can see here, this is an example of what we currently have set up, is you can see here, some of these assertions have worked. So our workflow execution worked well. Things that happened in our tier 0 has worked well, but some of our assertions have failed, right? So at a high level, you know, from here, if we could break it down, I think that's something we requested to Google to be like, hey, can we get the logging underneath what's happening? But you can figure out what's happening and where rather than having to go through all the individual logs itself. So what do you need if you do want to build some of these supplemental things? Basically, it has everything you need. It kind of doesn't, but it does. Is all you basically need to be able to do is figure out or know how to manage Google serverless infrastructure, do a little bit of Python, hit the APIs, figure out what you need to go and do, and basically GitHub runners. That's basically all that we supplemented to it. There's nothing fancy, there's nothing anything, that's literally, it's it. Cool. Right. So, a year on, we are the same team, we use the same data, did we get the same result? And the answer is no. Because previously, when we did our deployments, it was kind of a mess. It took 4 hours to change. Now we do more than 5 deployments a day with it. We can deploy at 5 p.m., not have any problems, not have any worries, because we have trust in our data quality alerting, and we have trust in our system to tell us what's going wrong. And therefore, if it does go wrong, we also know what the downstream impacts is. Because we have these flaggings about what does and doesn't go wrong, we are able to publish data with our data to say, hey, executive, here's the board pack that goes out. Here is the data quality checks that come with it. It's currently sitting at amber. And what that does is that feeds off all of our data quality checks that we've built previously on top of that. So therefore, we don't have to go on a Monday morning, oh my God, the reports are gone out. What happened? Was it fine? Was it not fine? Oh, hey, it's amber. You already know it's going to be maybe not that great. Then we'll investigate it afterwards. So, in summary, should you try Dataform? The reality is, do you want to use or use BigQuery? The answer is yes, by the way. It is the most superior platform. I will say that. If you are using it, do you like the scheduling and the orchestration to basically come out the box for you? Yes. Do you like GitHub integration? Yes. Do you like built-in data quality checks? Yes. Then welcome to the club. Then Dataform is basically for you if you're already using it. But I will say, to circle back to what was previously said, the meme corrupted, devastated. I know it's not. Actually, what it was is business processes here and then blaming the tech, what's on fire. It doesn't really matter what tool you use. The main thing that you have to do is understand the way that you want your team to operate and the data team to operate. You could use dbt, you could use Dataform, it doesn't matter, it could potentially fail. But the one takeaway is you really have to understand how you want to operate, what you want the data to look like, and have a clear vision, and that's what's going to make sure that your data platform is successful. Cool. Again, this is my dog again.